All right, hi Spanish Springs. Hey, happy Friday. If you're not watching this on Friday, happy Friday when it was Friday. All right, so this is part 2 of lecture 3. So it covers basically page 8 and page 9. All right, so just a review from that last time with the Supreme Court. Remember, there's 9 Supreme Court justices, one of which is the Chief Justice. The number of justices is set by Congress. It's been 9 for quite some time. Remember that they can change that through statute or legislation. All right. Let's see. Key powers: judicial review, overturning precedent, interpreting broadly worded laws, broadly worded constitution, broadly worded laws, overturning precedent. All right. They have 2 types of jurisdiction at the Supreme Court, both original and appellate. Remember, the vast majority of their cases come to them via appellate jurisdiction, meaning they've been appealed from either the state Supreme Courts over, or they have come up through the district, circuit, and then to the Supreme Court. And also remember that of the roughly 100 million court cases in the country a year, at the state level and the federal level combined, about 9,000 of those court cases will apply for a writ of certiorari, a writ of cert, which is the rule of 4. If 4 of those justices want to hear the case, they grant a writ of cert, and the court will hear a case. And of those roughly 9,000 that apply for a writ of cert, it's about 80 to 90. There's data in the book, but roughly, if you guys know, about 80 to 90 cases they hear a year, that's good. All right. Remember, original jurisdiction when it deals with ambassadors. And various states have some conflict. All right. Rule of 4. Okay. And remember the idea of oral arguments. If the Supreme Court grants writ of certiorari, they will then set a date for your court case. In that court case, you will get 30 minutes to argue your side, 30 minutes for the other side. And also remember that it's the time for the Supreme Court to ask questions. It's, usually lawyers prepare 30 minutes to argue their case, but most of the time they're quickly interrupted by the 9 justices who are using those oral arguments to get information to help them make a decision in a ruling. All right? Per curiam opinions are when the Supreme Court agrees to hear a case or to take a case, but they don't need oral arguments. The documents, briefs filed with that case for the writ of cert are enough information for them to make their decision. Okay? Per curiam opinion, per curiam opinion. All right, now, the big deal here is don't forget that they'll hear arguments, oral arguments, if they decide to hear oral arguments. The attorneys apply or provide legal briefs, which wherever these cases have come from, there's a whole bunch of paperwork that goes with the case. All right, they will read those briefs, and don't forget that their law clerks are helping them go through all of this information. They also read amicus briefs. Right, these are persuasive essays submitted by various interest groups or outside groups that have an impact on the decision that the courts are going to hear. So if there's a case on, let's take the Supreme Court just heard the same-sex marriage, the Proposition 8 in DOMA. I guarantee you there were people on both sides of that issue that filed amicus briefs asking the court to rule one way or the other for a variety of reasons. All right? Now, another thing is to win a Supreme Court case, you need a simple majority. So 5-4 is the bare majority that you need to win a case in front of the Supreme Court. And again, you won't know for months if you've won or not. Now, that's with the exception of something like Bush v. Gore, which was the judges were deciding the outcome of a presidential election, and so those decisions are issued quickly. But usually it takes months to craft an opinion, which we're going to get into in a second, and to let us know what their decision was. Now, the media and people in the court quite often will go to these oral arguments, and they will reading tea leaves. They will try to figure, based on the questions that, Antonin Scalia, one of the justices, asks, or the way he responded to a lawyer, or John Roberts, or Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the questions they asked, how they responded, people sometimes try to guess how they're going to rule. All right? So, here we go. We have opinions. And the big picture with an opinion is the Supreme Court will issue an opinion, and what that basically does is tells the reasoning of why they came to that decision. So this is the essay in which they're telling you, this is what we think the ambiguous law means. This is what we think that part of the Constitution means. This is why we wrote, this is why we decided the way we did. And what these opinions do is they give guidance to legislation, they give guidance to presidential action, they give guidance to state action. Their interpretation of the Constitution through these opinions is sent throughout the land, the legal land, and allows us to use their opinion to figure out what that part of the Constitution means. So we have 3 types of Supreme Court opinions. All right, the unanimous opinion, which is 9-0, and the unanimous sends a message. Miss Bedell is here trying to tease me. 9-0. Think of Brown v. Board. The justices worked hard to craft an opinion that all the justices would agree upon, so they would all sign it. Because think about what Brown v. Board overturned. It overturned Plessy, and they wanted to send a message to the country that clearly they all agreed that the definition of separate but equal was very different than what it was with Plessy. Decisions like the majority opinion, which can be anywhere from a 5-4 to a 8-1. They have a range of impact. 5-4 means there's still division on what the Constitution means or what the law means, or just agreement upon the court. So ideally, decisions are 9-0. I think about a third of the cases that the Supreme Court hears, they get 9-0 decisions. So there is a lot of agreement a third of the time, right? But you craft these opinions in a way that you can get a 5-4, a 6-3, sorry, my math's bad, 7-2, that kind of thing. All right? Now, the majority opinion expresses the ideas of the majority of why they ruled the way they did. You also will get a dissenting opinion, and these are the people, you can think of it as a minority opinion. If it's 6-3, the 3 will be the minority opinion or the dissenting opinion, and they're telling you why they disagree with the majority. I mean, quite often down the road, those dissenting opinions are used later in majority opinions when they overturn precedents. All right? And they give us some idea of what the minority thinks about the decision. We also have concurring opinions. And concurring opinions come with the majority. So if we have a 6-3 decision with the court, you may have 6 of them, they all voted the same way, but you may have 4 people that sign on to one opinion and 2 people that write a concurring opinion, which means they agree with the outcome, but for different legal reasons. They agree with the absolute end result, but they don't like the reasoning behind the other majority opinion. Right? Usually we don't call multiple dissenting opinions concurring opinions. There'll be different dissenting opinions. But a concurring opinion is somebody that agrees with the majority vote, but for different reasons. So therefore they voted with them, but they have a whole different kind of constitutional or ideological reasoning behind that. A couple things about opinions. The Chief Justice, if he's in the majority, will assign the opinion to a specific justice, one of the other 8 justices, or take it themselves. If the Chief Justice is not in the majority, the most senior justice can take the opinion and write it, or assign it to another one of the associate justices. Here's the key with opinions. You have to write them in a way that, one, can keep your majority. And it takes months. This is why it takes months to figure out their opinion, because they'll hear oral arguments, they'll read the briefs, they'll read the amicus briefs, and then they spend this time writing these opinions with the help of their law clerks, with discussions with the other justices, that kind of thing. And you have to word it in a way that keeps your majorities together. If you have a 5-4 majority in the vote, the original vote, oh, that's another thing, let's back up. The Friday conferences, they hear cases Monday through Thursday. And And then on the Friday conference, they go into a room with only the justices. The most junior member will have a pen and paper, and they vote. They just simply get the 5-4, the 6-3, the 7-2, the 8-1, the 9-0, whatever it is. And then they'll assign the opinions after that. And then they go on and write their opinions. You have to write, if you have a 5-4 majority opinion, you know that vote leaving the Friday conference is 5-4, and you're tasked with writing the opinion, you have to write that opinion in a way that those 5 people will still sign on to it. Does that make sense? That if you write it in a way that one of those majority people, they may end up writing a concurring opinion on their own because they can't agree with it, or what you do is you float the draft of your opinion and you let them comment on that, and you see if you can shape it in a way that keeps your 5-4 majority or your 6-3 majority or whatever it is. Now think about the 9-0, the unanimous. It's going to be difficult to keep a 9-0 decision. You have to craft that decision in a way that keeps those people together. And quite often they'll work really hard to get those opinions like that. And people can jump ship. The Friday conference when they vote doesn't mean they're there. They can immediately say, once they see your opinion, this hasn't been released to the public yet, I won't sign it unless you change this. And you as the writer of the opinion say, nope, that's the bedrock of my argument, I'm not changing it. You can lose votes, either to a concurring opinion or to somebody switching sides to the dissent, which could switch it 5-4 the other way. Or keep a 9-0 going to an 8-1 or a 7-2 kind of thing. All right? Now, the purpose of the opinion is right out of the notes. They communicate the court's reasoning for voting the way they did to the public. It establishes precedents for future cases. So this is where the circuit courts, the district courts, the state courts will all use these opinions to guide them in actions, whatever that case is related to. And it also, sometimes what they'll do is they'll tell Congress, we struck this law down, however, it may not be struck down if certain elements are changed. And so it gives hints or even actions by the executive or actions by a governor, actions by a state legislature, etc. That if they craft the law differently, it would be upheld and therefore constitutional. So it gives them that kind of thing. And if you have questions about these opinions, we'll try to do an example opinion in the class. Now again, think about it as we read in Federalist 78. The court has neither the purse nor the sword, but merely judgment. So they can write an opinion, and it's possible that we don't follow the opinion. Now we know that's rare. I know we have the example of Georgia v. Worcester, Andrew Jackson avoiding the opinion. But think again about Brown v. Board. The South refused to implement Brown v. Board, and it required Eisenhower to send troops in there to force desegregation. It required multiple court cases following Brown to keep forcing desegregation, ending segregation. Now, if we don't like their decision and we carry it out, the one way you get around it is you amend the Constitution. If you amend the Constitution and say the action that was taken in the law, the action that was taken by the president is now part of the Constitution, they can't rule it unconstitutional anymore. The other thing is, well, we don't carry it out. All right? And also know that the court changes over time. There are 9 people that get old, they retire, they die. They rarely are impeached. And again, impeached for high crimes or misdemeanors, not decisions that people don't like. All right? And then again, I guess there's one other element that's in E on page 9, Roman numeral 5 is, the Constitution may be what the Supreme Court says it is, but a Supreme Court opinion is what a trial judge or a policeman or a school board or a city council says it is. They may issue decisions, but they require that the rest of society implements and follows that. And so they don't have they don't have capes and they fly around and go, hey, you're unconstitutional, you're not following our decision right. They can't be everywhere at once. So, while although they said there's no prayer in public schools, there could be little schools in the middle of, some very religious part of our country, and they say a prayer every day in a public school, and nobody has a problem with it. And while it's unconstitutional according to the court, it's going to be carried out anyway. All right? Okay. Finally, just look at your notes for the voting blocks, right, of the justices. Right now we have Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and Stephen Breyer, which tend to be the 4 liberals on the court. And we have John Roberts, Antonin Scalia, Clarence Thomas, and Sam Alito, who tend to be the conservatives. Now the swing vote is Anthony Kennedy, a Reagan appointee. And I think he generally votes with the conservatives on most issues. However, on some of the social issues, that's why they call him the swing vote. We're not quite sure. So if you get cases, we've seen that same-sex marriage is in front of the court right now. We have to wait and see how he rules because they've already heard the Prop 8 and the DOMA case. We don't know how he's going to rule, or some people think they know, but we'll have to wait and see until they issue their opinion. All right? That's a quick one for now. If you have questions, let me know, and I'll see you on Monday. See you later, Cougars.